It's beautiful. We should give the weather forecast. Now, I understand that you're working on the new record. You're doing your particular job. What stage is it at?
Well, it's basically to the point where on every day off from the Monsters of Rock tour, me and James are up in Bearsville, up in New York, mixing it at the moment. And so it's like, what do you do for a living? I go on tour every weekend, and in between that, we mix albums up in Bearsville. So we'll be done in about a week. We have just 5 more mixes to do, and it should be out August 1st, give or take a few hours, and you know, the usual things that happen, so.
We're going to be looking forward to that, and I know that there's going to be a tour after that, but I want to talk about this one and how it's been for Metallica to be in a huge tour like this. Are you getting along with the other bands?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I think there's like an amazing feeling on this thing. We've known Dawkins for quite some time because they have the same management and so forth as we do, so we've known them for years, and we drink with them and trade insults and so forth. The Kingdom guys who were standing over here a minute ago laughing at us, we just met a couple weeks ago, and those guys are really cool too. Just, you know, hang out, have a beer, whatever. But I gotta tell you though, the most surprising thing is that the Van Halen guys, I can't tell you how cool those guys are. I don't mean this bad, but for someone who's been around as long as they have, it's like every day they come up, say hello to us, you know, we hang out for a few minutes. Sammy's a Bay Area guy, which is where we're based now, and I mean, just there's a great feeling with those guys. They're really, really down to earth and just kind of very hang-outable, if you know what I mean. They just
kind of feels like the 60s all over again, kind of a thing?
Yeah, 50s, 70s, whatever. Well, it's just a great vibe with them. The Scorpions guys are cool too, but we don't see those guys too much. They kind of, you know, hang out more to themselves or whatever. But the main thing is that there's like no friction really anywhere, which I think is like really important for this kind of thing. So,
well, from the looks of things, it's making the music kind of come off okay on stage. Everybody out there seems to be loving it. You're going to see a lot more of it as MTV's Monsters of Rock weekend continues.
The rock tour, Metallica played a couple of warm-up gigs in a small LA club under the name Frayed Ends. They thrashed out a new song which went over so well they might include it on their Monsters set. But what about the new album? We spoke to the ex-tennis pro turned thrash pioneer Lars Ulrich.
Well, the best thing about it is that it's done. We finished it on Monday, 4 days ago, and me and James are going up to Bearsville up in New York to mix it next week on some of the days off on this tour. It should be mixed about June 18th, and it should be in the stores August 1st. No, I have the title, much better. It's called And Justice for All, with 3 dots before it, 3. ... and Justice for All.
Expect some truly metallic songs on the record. Imagine a life without arms, legs, sight, and sound. And you got the concept behind a song called One. Other tracks on the album include Blackened, Frayed Ends of Sanity, and The Shortest Straw. After the Monsters tour, Metallica will head for Europe, followed by a 7-month headline US tour.
We just always try and keep it as open mind as possible, and I think over the last couple of years we've been putting a lot of categories that I think are too limiting for what we try and do, which we try and sort of do a lot of different things. We like doing slower, ballady type things, we like doing the fast, so it's like we have like a certain area where we feel comfortable operating in, and I just hate when people try and limit us or limit, you know, what they allow us to do or whatever. So, you know, that's the whole attitude of Metallica.
On this type of tour, you have to wake up like at about 11 o'clock. You're on stage by 2:30, which is different. I mean, when you do a regular tour, you get up at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and
comfortably eat and everything, and just kind of hang out and then get, you know, practice for a while, do the show, stuff like that. This is like a real quick thing. Up at noon and on stage 2 hours later, it's like
It's like a weird catch-22, because if you get too late to sleep and you don't get enough sleep, you feel like beep, you know, during the day, and you play less. But if you get a lot of sleep, you know, get 10 hours of sleep, which has happened a couple times, you wake up and you feel like really groggy for the first couple hours because you've slept so much. So it's like no matter what happens, you lose.
On this tour, I've gotten more sun than I have in the last 2 years.
Every night, see the freedom in my sight.
excited, extra excited about this thing, you know. Every show means so much. You know, it's like charge, this huge charge. Has to be that way. The kids are expecting that. The kids are expecting so much. They've seen us in 2 years, they're expecting us to just kill them.
Metallica is the best.
Why? Because they play the hardest metal there is.
Metallica rules.
I like it because they're just a bunch of guys having fun.
I mean, we don't view ourselves as being much different than the audience. I mean, we just happen to be the guys up on stage, and they just happen to be the people in the audience. And we're musicians, but I'm sure there's a lot of other musicians out there. And that's something that we've always took into account. That, I mean, we're basically fans too. If we weren't there on the stage, we'd be there checking out the bands.
Let's put it like this, when you see Metallica in the hotel on the day off, they're dressed exactly like when you see them on stage, you know? And I dig that. I say, you know, they don't go out there, same thing. They're not putting on a show. They're going out there and playing music and just doing this thing. And in a way, they're like my favorite band on the show too, only because it reminds me to kind of stay in touch with the street and with where you're really at, and not get too showbiz, you know.
Might sound a bit arrogant, but Metallica is like a very inward-looking band. You know, the kind of performance that come up and go, well, we're doing this for the kids, and we're playing for the people out there, and, you know, rock and roll for the people. It's like, we're like exactly the opposite. We like look more inwards and are more worried about keeping ourselves satisfied and really doing what feels right to us.
The last thing Metallica wants to be known as is a band that's, you know, preaching. Right. I mean, we're not, you know, out to say, hey, we're a band with a message. I mean, the topics that are involved with us are just things that mean something to us personally. I mean, if you get the message, you know, that's cool, because that's how we think. If you don't get the message, then, you know, well. We try to instill a sense of realism into our music. We don't like sing about love and partying. Can you picture us playing the music that we do and singing lyrics like, come on baby, come to my pad, we'll have a good time.
Metallica would never change to cater to anyone else's minds. We would always stay the same and have people cater, you know, change for us. And I think that looking back on the last couple of years, the most satisfying thing is that that's really what's happened, you know. I think part of what Metallica is that there's always the thing that we can always go in whatever direction we want because we always set the terms ourselves, you know what I mean? So I don't want to sit here and go, we'll never do this, we'll never do that, because if it feels right to us, then we're going to do it, and we're not going to worry about what other people think of it.
Finally kicked off to a crowd of 40,000 people last weekend in Wisconsin, and here's a look.
It seemed a little weird kicking off the Monsters tour in a bucolic Wisconsin hillside, but for metal fans it couldn't have been a better setting, and more than 40,000 of them showed up, some driving for more than 6 hours to make the scene. The Monsters' opening show drew comparisons to great concert events of the past.
When I was 10 years old, I saw Woodstock, and I said, that's what I want to do someday, so now I'm getting my chance.
Well, I figure it's the biggest thing since Woodstock. We played for more people today than we did the whole time on our UK tour, which was like 20 dates.
It's the greatest concert in the world. 9 hours is great.
The size of the event fueled the energy backstage, which ranged from opening night nerves to unabashed excitement.
I looked at that audience and now I'm a nervous wreck. I'm shook up. I got to go to the bathroom.
It's like you people out there. Can you imagine being on a stage with 40,000 people out there screaming? Man, it's over the top.
I like these kind of gigs where the crowds are like above you, looking down on you. It's great when you have eye contact with a lot of people out there, and I kind of like this.
The Scorpions played a 90-minute set, storming through old scorchers as well as new cuts from their current top 10 album, Savage Amusement. Metallica and Dokken also brought the crowd to its feet, and then it was time for Van Halen. With Alex thumping rhythm, Michael Anthony pounding away, and Sammy and Eddie lifting the audience to a new high, the first show ended a major success. But it was only a taste of things to come on this roof-raising tour.
This first show here is very small. This is our drum riser barely fit on his stage. That's the truth. Because all we're using from our real show is our drum riser and about a third of the lights. So the next stage you'll see is 3 times as big.
Unfortunately, Sammy Hagar slipped on stage during Van Halen's first song and found out after the show that he had fractured his tailbone and the vertebrae above it. Luckily, the mishap wasn't serious enough to prevent Sammy from performing and approaching. The album lasts an hour and 5 minutes and includes 9 songs, but the guys swear it is not a concept album. Meanwhile, Metallica's performance on Van Halen's Monsters of Rock tour is one of the highlights, and furthermore, they're reportedly selling more t-shirts than any of the other acts. After the Monsters tour, Metallica will tour Europe and then come back to the States in November. The inside word is that Queensryche will be opening up. In the meantime, Rip Magazine has just put out an issue devoted entirely to Metallica. It's got a pull-out poster, tons of rare facts, Metallica photos, and a special section on the late Cliff Burton. The issue is on newsstands now.
One fan described it as a mini Woodstock of the 80s, and if your eardrums could withstand it, it was available for 9 hours, all 250,000 watts of it. There were 5 heavy metal bands, the so-called Monsters of Rock, and about 40,000 of their fans.
I love rock and roll! What's heavy metal? Rock and roll!
Many of the fans were teenagers, and some security officers have complained many were drinking even though the legal age in D.C. is 21.
How old are you? 18. Now, you're not supposed to drink if you're 18, right?
Yeah.
You are.
So what? And for some, it was too much. A friend described this teenager as having had too much to drink. He was unconscious when taken away by paramedics. But some entertained themselves, so they made frisbees. This instant trampoline stunt had become the pastime of the night. As far as we know, no one was injured. Finally, the main event, Van Halen. Tonight was the 5th of 25 of these Monster of Rock concerts, which the organizers say will be the biggest musical event of the summer, seen by 2 million people before the tour concludes. Sam Ford, News 7, late edition.